In the years following World War I, the nations involved in the conflict began developing more powerful aircraft to support ground operation troops. Military tacticians knew that aviation would play a vital role in the following war, and experimented with dozens of different aircraft configurations and combat roles. Russia, on the other hand, wanted something different. As another effective way of increasing the reach of propaganda from the communist regime, Joseph Stalin approved the construction of the Tupolev ANT-20, an 8-engine aircraft that would become the largest of its time. This colossal beast, which had a wingspan of 63 meters, was baptized as Maxim Gorky to commemorate the Russian author's literary career. And it was no coincidence, for the aircraft was conceived with a particular purpose: to promote the ideas of communism in all of Russia. To fulfill this task, the Maxim Gorky was equipped with a massive library, equipment for printing thousands of leaflets, a radio set to speak to the masses, and even a projector to display images in the skies. The aircraft would take part in its propaganda missions for over a year, before it fatally crashed in an accident during an air demonstration over Moscow. Russian engineers built another Maxim Gorky, but the beginning of Operation Barbarossa and the German offensive in the West made it impossible to return it to its propaganda objective. The USSR was, by then, fighting for its survival. An inspirational propaganda would give way to the forced conscription of millions of indoctrinated peasants that would become the backbone of the Soviet military. The beginning of an iron era. In the middle of the Great War stalemate and the rise of trench warfare, the once great Russian Empire of the Tsars and Tsarinas had to negotiate a humiliating treaty with the German Empire. This secured its frontiers and sent the Russian troops back to Moscow. In the heart of the motherland, a revolution that would change the fate of the world had erupted, and there was no turning back. It was the beginning of the end of the Russian monarchy and Christendom. The revolution gave rise to the communist regime, which quickly evolved into the USSR. In a country already devastated by the Great War, the Marxist revolution drastically increased the plagues, food shortage, and, most importantly, the new government's economic development. Under the leadership of Stalin, civil discomfort increased. Peasants quickly discovered that the new ideas of an equal society were blatant lies. While they starved, Stalin and his elite grew wealthier by the day, with plenty of food to fill their stomachs. The peasants, in turn, were robbed of their harvests and forced to live on collective farms. Stalin's response to everyone who opposed the new regime was brutal. Labor camps, gulags, mass exterminations, and unjustifiable purges of millions of lives became common to force the society to adopt the communist ideas. To further increase the USSR's propaganda and force the society to believe in Stalin, Soviet intellectuals and engineers turned to aviation. This was seen as an innovative way of reaching out to the humblest of peasants, scattered by the thousands in Russia's vastness. A propaganda aircraft. Sometime in 1932, journalist Mikhail Koltsov, a convinced ideologist of Marxism and a deep admirer of Joseph Stalin, wrote, quote, "The construction of a giant propaganda plane will revitalize our agitprop methods as the country reaches new technological heights." Koltsov was one of Stalin's most valuable assets for spreading the alleged universal truths of communism across all of Russia and the USSR. The journalist was convinced that the new tool would be a game changer for how Soviet propaganda was delivered to society. The intellectual proposed that the Soviet leader build the aircraft to commemorate the literary anniversary of writer Maxim Gorky, who had risen to fame for founding the socialist realism literary method and criticizing the Tsarist regime. Stalin agreed, and construction of the aircraft began in July of 1933. Soviet aeronautical engineer Andrei Nikolaevich Tupolev was tasked with designing the new Colossus. Tupolev was a living legend among Russian aircraft designers for his successful prototypes, such as the Tu-2, Tu-16, and Tu-95. Comrade Stalin and Koltsov wanted to make the aircraft memorable. They planned for the airplane to represent the USSR's greatness, and as such, they suggested Tupolev make it the largest aircraft that had ever flown. The cost of the airplane was estimated to be over 5 million rubles. Although the USSR was in crisis, the money was easily covered by generous public and private donations. The aircraft was constructed in over 9 months. By April 1944, it was almost ready. Tupolev built the Maxim Gorky using all-metal airplane design techniques conceived by Hugo Junkers during the later years of the post-war period. Tupolev probably also implemented the knowledge he had gathered from the Germans due to a secret agreement of military cooperation the USSR and Germany celebrated years before. The Tupolev Maxim Gorky became the biggest aircraft of its time. It measured 33 meters in length, with a wingspan of 63 meters, and a gross weight of 42 tons. It was almost 20 meters larger than the German Dornier DO flying boat designed by Dornier himself. Additionally, the aircraft also became the first to use direct and alternating current systems. It could be easily dismantled to be transported by rail if needed. To lift such a giant, the Maxim Gorky was fitted with 8 900-horsepower M34 FRN piston engines. 6 of them were placed in the wings, and 2 atop the fuselage. It could reach a max speed of 220 kilometers per hour. It was slow but serviceable for its propagandistic purpose. The Maxim had a capacity of 72 passengers. From the inside, it was a very luxurious aircraft, with a dozen commodities that even included exclusive suites for VIP officers. It had a bar, buffet, library, a 10-line telephone interchange, pharmacy, movie theater, and a laundry room. The 100-meter interior was profusely decorated with carpets, tapestries, curtains, windows, tables with reading lamps, and comfortable armchairs. Commodities aside, to fulfill its propagandistic purpose, the Maxim was equipped with a printing press that could produce 12,000 pages in over an hour. The airplane also carried a darkroom laboratory for photography analysis and a loudspeaker system called the Voice from the Sky. This loudspeaker was used to broadcast lectures related to the greatness of the Soviet regime, Stalin's egocentric virtues, and short stories about the true heroes of the USSR. All of Koltsov's ideas came true, except for installing 18 illuminated letters underneath the wings to display messages from the sky. In the end, only the words Maxim Gorky were written underneath the plane. Another proposal that didn't come true was suggested by Arkangelsky, who oversaw a warplane division. His request was described by Maximilian Saki's 2005 book on the Maxim Gorky. He reportedly said, quote, "Preferably during flight, the plane will have the ability to show various images and slogans on the clouds, or in a special smoke curtain created by the aircraft itself, by means of a special projector apparatus. These images and short slogans should be of a size that can be seen and read from the Earth at a distance of around 2 to 3 kilometers. The ambitious idea was not incorporated into the propaganda aircraft because it was technically impossible at the time. Nevertheless, when the airplane landed at airfields, film screenings were held. A ponderous plane. The Soviet people saw the Maxim Gorky for the first time on June 19, 1934, when it flew over the Red Square for a celebration. Although some Russian officers saw it as an expensive luxury, the foreign press was impressed by the gigantic size of the Maxim. According to author Scott W. Palmer, in his book Dictatorship of the Air, during the reveal, a U.S. Army assistant described the aircraft as, quote, unbelievably ponderous in construction. Other designers used the same words for what they saw. The Maxim Gorky spent over a year in ongoing missions, flying all over the motherland, impressing poor peasants who admired the genius of the USSR's technological and military advances. Although the future of the Maxim Gorky seemed promising, with Stalin even planning to use it as his personal plane, its career came to an abrupt end on May 18, 1935. During a ceremonial flight over Moscow, where the aircraft was going to be handed over to the recently created Gorky Air Propaganda Division, a fatal incident occurred. Accompanied by two smaller planes, the Maxim stood out as an ancient flying beast, guarded by two small and insignificant Tupolev ANT-20 and R5. Its shadow covered the crowds gathered to see the airshow. Music gracefully came over the voice from the sky speakers installed in the plane. Everything was going well, until one of the small planes, piloted by Nikolai Begin, decided to perform loop maneuvers around the Gorky. During the third loop, Nikolai crashed into the right wing of the Maxim Gorky, and both planes fell to the ground. The impact was disastrous. The Maxim crashed in the suburb of Sokol, taking the lives of 48 people. The aircraft was lost forever. Pilot Nikolai Begin was called reckless and ignorant by Soviet defense officials for performing such maneuvers so close to the aircraft. Still, he was given a proper burial. Days later, Soviet intelligence allegedly discovered a suicide note written by Nikolai himself. Others went on to say that he was paid to destroy the airplane. Neither story was ever proven. A canceled giant. After the Maxim's destruction, a replacement was delivered in early 1938 with various improvements, which included the more powerful Mikulin AM-35 engines. The replacement served with Aeroflot for transport routes in Uzbekistan. In December 1942, crashed for unknown reasons, taking with it the 36 people on board. Plans for building another aircraft were cancelled, as the USSR was at war with Germany at that time, and the entire war industry was focused on building tanks and aircraft for combat. During the first months of Operation Barbarossa, the fury of the German advance got so close to Moscow that Stalin swore to commit every Russian citizen and economic effort to push the Germans back no matter the cost. Today, a monument dedicated to Maxim Gorky and the crash victims can be appreciated in downtown Moscow.